Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I wish I was Clarence E. Hill Jr. of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Instead, I am but Mac Engel, sports columnist extraordinary. Those are his words, not mine. That good-looking gentleman on the other side of the screen is Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr., who somehow defies age and manages to look like he's in his mid-50s rather than his mid-60s. Clarence, how we doing?
I mean, goodness gracious, just always backhanded shots and compliments. You're feeling good about yourself. We need to congratulate Mac Engel, one of the top columnists in the country.
Thank you.
Ooh, we all knew this. The world just found out. We're all one of the top columnists in the country. Hey, you get a raise. You get a raise with that. What do you get? You get dinner? What you get?
That's a good question. So far, nothing. I think my mom asked me that. I told my mom, and I found out about this like a week or two ago, whenever it was, and it was actually I was in Indiana visiting my mom and dad right before you came up to Indianapolis for the combine, and I told somebody about it, and they said, "Why don't you tell anybody?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. It's kind of weird and awkward." And they're like, "Dude, when you get middle-aged, you better celebrate the wins when you get them." I was like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right." So I'm going to celebrate. But so far I've gotten nothing out of it. So if you want to send me like a Chili's gift card or a Hooters gift card or anything like that, I'm down. Right now I've received nothing, but I'm optimistic something's going to come in the mail.
You're getting a lot of praise. I'm glad you've posted it on social media, posted it on your Facebook so people can give you your flowers. And personally, I want to give you my flowers right now. Congratulations. You deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate that. All right. So this episode of Light and every other episode of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com, sponsored by the good people at Window Nation. Let's get right into it. Clarence, you've covered Mike McCarthy since he's walked through the door, and you've seen how his comfort level with the media and just in general has changed. And I got to tell you, when he was asked about taking over the play calling, he made a comment that almost sounded like he was throwing former Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator right under the bus, backed up over it, and drove over it again. Now, Mike, I've covered him. I don't get the impression that he would do this sort of thing intentionally. Do you think he threw Kellen Moore under the bus and tried to, in a way, blame him for this team's lack of ability to score lots of points in playoff games?
Yeah, I think that it's a situation where sometimes you can be too honest and too open, and then people can parse your words and take it for what he wants. And Mike has done he's been very much more open with the media in Dallas than he was at Green Bay. He's immediately talked about it. It's not something he did. And at the combine, we always do a conversation at the podium, and then we go to dinner or go to lunch, and we do kind of a conversation with just the local media at lunch, and we could get drilled down on some things, and he was just trying to explain to us his thought processes, his philosophies, and we understand that his philosophies historically as a West Coast offense is different than Kellen Moore's, and number one, how they run the offense, and number two, just from a mindset standpoint. So he was talking to us, and we wrote stories about his, the differences and why he made the changes. National media took it and killed him and said he was throwing Kellen Moore under the bus. That was not in his intent. He praised Kellen Moore throughout the conversation. He talked about, the great job he did. He talked about why he kept Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator for 3 years, because he could have made this move from jump. And he could have made this move when he first got here.
Wait, stop. Hang on. Let me ask you this question. We've seen coaches come in here before, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett, where Jerry Jones says, this guy's going to be on your staff. Do you think a part of the condition of Mike McCarthy taking the Cowboys job a couple of years ago was Kellen Moore as your offensive coordinator?
Well, there's some of that can be the case, but you can also micromanage. If you can also, Jerry Jones says he's your coordinator, but you can also go in there and make the job difficult for him to be your coordinator by nitpicking, micromanaging. Basically, yes, he's in coordinator name only, but this is going to be my offense and we're doing it my way. He left everything. He gave, Kellen Moore carte blanche to run and call plays as he wished. And he did that for 3 straight years. And, there's a whole thought process within the organization that what can we do different to get over the hump? And they felt that they had gone as far as they could go with the Kellen Moore offense, the team from front office on down. And so they made the decision to make Mike McCarthy the offensive coordinator. And, it's funny because, the man has gone 12-5, 12-5. He's won more games the past 2 years than any team, any coach other than Andy Reid. He hasn't won the playoffs, but a regular season game, 12-5, no one's done that. The Cowboys have not won back-to-back 12-win seasons since the 90s when they were going to Super Bowls. To me, that's something to be happy about. With Dallas,
for sure,
his job is on the line. It's funny. He's go 12-5, 12-5, and now your job is on the line because you lost in the playoffs, and you're going into the fourth year of a 5-year deal with no path to a.
But Clarence, wait a minute. His job isn't. But his job isn't on the line. We know that. Hang on, hear me out.
It's not.
No, I don't think it is. Look how long they stuck with Jason Garrett.
He's not Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett is in the family portrait.
Was a family member. Okay, then I'll understand that part of it. But Clarence, you can't fire the team. Kellen Moore wasn't this team's problem. Now, but at some point, it's no different than why they got rid of Jason Garrett. You're like, well, we can't fire the team. We can't get rid of all 53. We've got to try to do something different. So if they go 12 let's just play this out. If they go 12-5 again, a third straight season, and they get to the playoffs for a third straight season, and they lose in the divisional round again for the third straight season by, let's say, 5 points, a score, are they going to fire Mike McCarthy?
Yes.
There's no way, Clarence, they're firing Mike McCarthy if he has another 12-5 season. There's no way. What would they replace him with?
Dan Quinn.
Okay. You might be able to say no. You might be able to sell me on that. No, I mean that you might be able to sell me on that scenario.
But beyond that, I'm just talking about the situation Mike's in, and whether you believe it, I believe there is a thought process out there that he's coaching for his job.
Okay, so let's go back to
do it my way. And I'm just saying that national media has taken you're throwing Kellen Moore on the bus. And the other part about this, and just before we move on, is that when Mike was head coach in Green Bay, one thing they got criticized for was they passed too much. They didn't run the ball. And so now you're going to say, hey, Kellen Moore runs the ball, passes too much. Well, that's the same thing you did.
But the thing that kills me is that I didn't really think when I read that, when you wrote it, and by the way, sincerely, you did a really nice job in Indianapolis covering all that stuff. That's not easy to do it. Obviously I did it with you a number of years ago. It's not easy to do. And run around trying to get all those guys isn't easy now more than ever. But when I read that comment that he made to you all, which was, hey, I've been right where Kellen Moore's been, and you want to light up the scoreboard. I remember when Jason Garrett was a young coordinator, it was pass. And at some point, you've got to give your defense a chance to breathe. Right. And he talked about that. But Clarence, if you look statistically, the Cowboys weren't at the top of the league throwing the ball. They ran the ball a good amount with Zeke Elliott under Mike McCarthy. So that's why part of me is like looking at McCarthy's comments, Clarence, and I'm like, what's he saying? Statistically, this doesn't add up. And sometimes, and you and I both know it, an offensive game plan goes in, they go, okay, we're going to run the ball. And then they can't run the ball. And you're like, okay, now we got to throw it. Now you're down 2 scores, and then you've given up on the run.
Well,
that's every NFL team.
It wasn't just the number of runs, it's how you run, it's the blocking schemes, the type of things. They're the running schemes, they ran too much outside zone with Zeke. Zeke can't get around the corner, run him inside, do different things. They're going to make a lot of changes philosophically to how they approach the game. And so I think that's
it's not just the number of carries.
It's definitely not just the number of carries. That's all the people took it. They go crazy over the number. Well, it's not just the number of carries. It's how they do it, how they protect it, being, and trying to get Dak to be less aggressive and more conservative and more game plan oriented and not take chances with some throws down the field. There's a lot of things that they want to do differently.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic. You mentioned the running game. Big news in the last week is that, as expected, the Dallas Cowboys have put the franchise tag on running back Tony Pollard. So that means Tony will make more than $10 million this season in what would have been potentially a free agent year. So they keep him, but they don't give him a big contract. Now they could work out something long-term, but considering how the last time they did that with Ezekiel Elliott worked out, it's doubtful that Tony Pollard will get anything, at least I think, other than the franchise tag this season. Clarence, Tony gets the franchise tag. Now, what does that mean for the future of Ezekiel Elliott with the Cowboys?
Well, number one, it's just a financial thing. Let's understand. Tony gets a franchise tag. He's $10.1 million, on the books for next year. Right now, Zeke is counting $16 million on the books for next year. That's the highest amount of franchise money any team when you add them together. So the $27 million right now that they have on the books at running back is the highest cap figure in the history of the NFL at running back. That's not going to stand. They have to do something with Zeke's number, and that's either make him take a pay cut or he will be cut. If they cut Zeke, they're going to save almost $5 million on the cap, which they can use to other players. Bottom line is that Zeke will not be back at that number if he's back at all. And if you want to lower his salary, what number is amenable? What number is will placate Zeke and not embarrass Zeke, but also be good enough for you to keep and move on as a backup running back? And I don't know what that number could be. I don't know is there any path to going forward with Zeke, a running back. And I really think they should, they will and should draft a running back in in April. But we number one with Tony Pollard making $10.1 million, we have to discontinue the farce that Zeke's the number one back. Tony Pollard's going to be the starter. He's going to be the primary back. So as a backup, how many carries does that mean? What role is that? How do you move forward with Zeke as a backup?
Clarence, Tony Pollard's the starter. He comes back from his leg injury healthy, we think. The leg injury that he suffered in the loss to the 49ers in the divisional round. Immediately after that game, I think anybody, certainly myself, anybody else, saw that game would say that was Zeke's last game with the Cowboys. Then immediately afterwards, and I'm immediately, a week or two afterwards, you talked to Jerry and Stephen Jones. Both of them said, bring the band back together. Zeke's coming back. Tyron Smith's coming back. Everybody but the kicker. Yeah, it was the kicker's fault.
The kicker's done.
Kicker's done. Yeah, hate the kicker. That's why we stink. It was the kicker's fault. That's why we couldn't beat the 49ers. So now Stephen Jones says, we want him back. Got to work financially. So the mood about this whole thing seems to be sort of an evolving work in progress. I still don't think he's going to be back based on production. You've listened to these guys. You've covered it forever. What is your gut instinct on Ezekiel Elliott being a Cowboy come August?
Well, there's no question that Zeke wants to be here. His mom.
Not about if he wants to be here. You think he will?
Okay. It up, sir. Let me talk. There's no question that Zeke wants to be here. He would take a pay cut. I've talked to both sides from Zeke's side and the Cowboys side. And again, as I so eloquently said earlier, I just don't see a path forward for him to stay on this team. I just don't know how you can find a way to do it. I don't think it's a smart thing to do. For them to bring him back. The thing with Zeke, as he looks at if he doesn't take whatever number they put out there, who's going to pay you what you want? And if it's not this year, it's going to be next year. Zeke's career as a Cowboy is coming to an end. If it's not this year, it will certainly be next year. So that those are facts. And why delay the inevitable?
I'm not going to deviate from where I stood after that game. I think this, based on production.
Production and finance. The production and the finance, they go hand in hand.
The financial part of it, you said it, the salary cap's fake. They wanted to bring it back, they could. And they were going to bring it back at a lower number, but I'm just like, what number? Even if they gave him the league minimum, Clarence, his legs aren't what they were. And if you're going to split back time, which I think we're going to see more and more of that in the NFL, go get a rookie. Even if it's not Bijan Robinson, at 26, looks like that wouldn't be a bad idea. Go get somebody. Kendre Miller, he's a TCU kid, so that's a kid I know. Go get a guy in rounds 1 through 3, maybe even 4. Give him time. Because if your line can block and young legs, you can do fine. Okay, we've got to take a break, and then we'll be back with more Cowboys Overtime. But first, word from our good friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no payments and pay no interest until 2025. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. Thank you very much, Window Nation. Back here on StarTelegram.com for another episode of Cowboys Overtime. I am Mac Engel. He's Clarence E. Hill Jr. Clarence, there are obviously other players whose futures with the Dallas Cowboys are uncertain, some really, really good ones. You talked to some people at Indianapolis in the Combine, which is not just necessary. It's almost like a job fair, and it's a chance for all NFL people to get together and just sort of talk and gossip and ponder futures and teams and situations. Well, there's three guys specifically that we need to talk about and whether or not they have a future with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a big fan of all two of these guys for sure. Linebacker Leighton Resch, a former first-round pick from Boise State. He's come back from a neck injury. Trust me. Leighton Vander Esch had a really solid season, but he does have that neck injury. He is going to be a free agent. I'm not sure about him. He's a really good player, but obviously the injury scares the Cowboys considerably. Anybody who watches the Dallas Cowboys would love safety Donovan Wilson. He can be a free agent, guy at A&M. He gave them a lot on the back end, and he really emerged and developed, even though he was a later round pick 4 years ago. And the other one is tight end Dalton Schultz. Clarence, if you had to look at these three guys, Leighton Vander Esch, Donovan Wilson, and Dalton Schultz, which one's going to be back?
I don't know which one's going to be back. I think the most valuable one that they need back is Donovan Wilson because of what he does at the safety position in how they play defense with those three safeties and that big nickel. He's one of the top playmakers on that defense. He led the Cowboys in tackles last year. He, sat getting to the quarterback, turning the ball over. He's a guy that you drafted low and has developed into a very foundational piece of your defense. But I don't know if either one of them are coming back. Just talking to their agents, talking to the situations, Donovan Wilson probably have a good market. I don't know if the Cowboys don't have a history of paying safeties. And if he gets to the free agent market, they didn't tag him. They tagged Pollard. They weren't going to tag Wilson at $14 million. Certainly they weren't going to tag Schultz again after tagging him last year and really drafting his replacement. And there are a lot of mock drafts that have the Cowboys taking a tight end in the first round. So, and the Cowboys interviewed a lot of tight ends, at the Combine. So they're most likely going to draft the tight end again this year. So, there's no reason to bring Schultz back. And he's going to get more money on the free agent market. And going back
Dalton Schultz is first of all, Dalton Schultz is gone.
He's gone. He's going to get more money.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And
Leighton Vander Esch, you can't trust his health.
You can't trust his health, but you talk about how well this defense played. Go watch this defense with and without Leighton Vander Esch last season. They were different. They were. And I know they can't trust him. So if you can't trust the health, and let's play this out. They offer him a year. Will he take it? Or I got to assume if the Texans or somebody else calls and says, we'll give you 2 to 3, he got to take 2 to 3. If he wants to be here, he knows it here, he's good here, he likes the coordinator likes him. Do you think he would take a year and stay here?
No, he won't. Just to pull the curtain back, Leighton Vander Esch was gone to the Steelers last year. He had a multi-year deal to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. At the last minute, the Steelers pulled it off the table because they got Miles Jack, and they signed Miles Jack, and they pulled the contract. Literally pulled it, at the last minute, devastating. So he came back to the Cowboys on a 1-year deal. Talking to his agent, watching the negotiations, him getting off the bus, upset at the Combine. Clearly, the Cowboys are not offering more than a 1-year deal now. When he gets to free agency, I think teams are going to offer him a multi-year deal. At his age and his situation, he's going to take that. He's not going to keep dancing 1-year deal. You got to do what's best for you in your situation.
No, you got to take it.
So the team family is first.
Yep, absolutely. And if he gets 2 to 3 years, good for him. And he's been a really good player. But you talk about, they don't value the safety position. They haven't drafted a safety in the first round since Roy Williams. It's 1,000 years ago. It's 20 years ago. And they kept running through guys. And we've talked about their inability to find a competent, good safety in this era of football who can cover, play. He played. There were times, Clarence, last year where Donovan Wilson played inside the defensive end, a yard off the line of scrimmage. You can't do that with many safeties. And he's competent in space. He's a good player. He's a really good player. Why on earth wouldn't you keep that in light of the fact you can't find this position since Darren Woodson? And now you've got him, and you're gonna let him go?
You have two other safeties that you value as well. That you're starting three safeties. You can't pay them all. You can't keep them all. And it's issue of not letting them go. His issue of is he going to get a better deal elsewhere?
Yes.
The strikeout tag for a safety is $14 million. So you're not going to take a deal that's less than $14-15 million a year. Are you going to pay that for Donovan Wilson? Are the Cowboys going to pay that at a safety position? No.
I'm a big fan of all those guys, Donovan Wilson especially, because we have
Javon
waited
Curse,
forever to
Malik
see.
Hooker, you got some good safeties. You drafted a couple of safeties last year that you like. Or you signed it. Some young safeties that you like. It's a good problem to have. I think Donovan Wilson's the best playmaker of the group.
So
And he's the ball guy. He's around the ball. He turns the ball over. That's something that you value that you're going to miss. The Cowboys have led the league in turnovers the past 2 years, and Donovan Wilson is a big reason why.
Damn right. All right, let's go to our last subject here on Cowboys Overtime. Clarence, you had the great pleasure of sitting on the Dallas Cowboys bus for the annual Combine State of the Team by Pro Football Hall of Famer Jerry Jones. Jerry was in rare form when he sat there and talked to you guys. I swear to God, I read some of his comments sometimes. I'm like, where does this come from? And he's just the best. I mean, he's just a reporter's dream. He's just great. But my favorite was when you guys talked about making this team better, talk about throwing under the bus. Jerry Jones basically says, yeah, well, the reason we can't find players better or pay them is because we gave the quarterback all this money. It's the biggest line of crap it just baffles me that not only that he would say it, that he would think anybody would buy it. But okay, fine, it's his team. Clarence, do you really think Dak Prescott's contract has prevented the Cowboys from signing free agents?
No, I don't, because I'm old enough to remember when Dak wasn't making any money, they didn't sign the free agents. When Dak was a rookie, they didn't sign the free agents. The second year, they signed the free agents.
Does he think you're stupid? Clarence, does he think you're stupid? Does Jerry think Clarence is an idiot? He's not going to do any research. He's only covered my team for 20 years. Did he think you're really dumb and that you would believe such a line of horse dung?
No, I mean it's crazy, and again,
it's crazy.
It is crazy. But what I think, and what you're going to write for the Star Telegram, I think is Jerry's already starting negotiations. He's out public negotiating because the Cowboys have already said they want to sign Dak Prescott to a contract extension. We're already going to talk about that. We got to, we want Dak Prescott to be. We love Dak Prescott. We're going to be here. So what can we do to spoil the water out there publicly and try to get Dak to take less money on his second deal is by saying we can't pay anybody because we got to pay Dak all this money. I mean, he's already put the narrative out there for this negotiation of this contract exchange. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Is there any chance this is just Jerry talking? And sometimes when you talk that much, you just sort of stumble into sentences that you look back on and think, well,
Jerry's always talking. They love Dak.
No, because we're all guilty of that. I mean, anybody.
Yeah. They love Dak and they want him to be here for years to come. But, we need to sign this deal. Yeah, I mean, the money impact what you can do. But, who else are you paying right now? Nobody. Right now, you're not playing.
Who are you? That's a tank?
No.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, Zach Martin?
Yeah, so.
Okay. All right, last question here on Cowboys Overtime. This is not a Cowboys question. This is a football question. I'm sure you've seen this. But yesterday, spring ball has started at certain college campuses, including University of Texas. Clarence, who's going to be the starting quarterback at Texas? Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning?
It's Quinn Ewers. Let's not do this. Arch Manning is a freshman. It's Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
Quinn Ewers is a starter.
Yeah, because no one's ever started a freshman before.
Be the backup and possibly not a true freshman, not redshirt. If we're talking about a true freshman, that's not ideally what you want to do. Quinn Ewers is be the starter.
Okay. All right. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you to the great people of Window Nation for sponsoring this episode of Cowboys Overtime. For all of your Dallas Cowboys coverage needs, be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. He's Clarence E. Hill Jr. I'm Mac Engel. We will see you next week.